be off. All right, we're going to try this one more time. Thank you, everybody, for joining this evening. And welcome everybody to Northwoods TCG, where today we have a special guest in IFOMO joining us this evening from another country, which is kind of fun. But I will give you an opportunity to be able to introduce yourself. I know a lot of people see you in my chats. You're a moderator on my channel. You are on a lot of different chats, a lot of different forums and lives that we do here on the Pokemon spectrum. That's not all you do, but I would like you to do a small introduction to everybody out there so that they can learn who you are, get a feel for the man behind the legend on the chats, and that way people can know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so hey, I'm IFOMO. I'm currently a nursing student. I just started phase 2 of nursing, and I flip Pokemon TCG on the secondary market. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and started watching YouTube videos probably a little bit before that. But yeah, currently I'm in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, in Central America. This is actually my home country. I was born in Washington, D.C., but I moved here when I was one, and I lived here for 17 years. And I got really involved into Pokemon when I was a kid, especially in the anime and the video games. I remember having Pokemon Crystal, Sapphire, Emerald, all the way up to the DS, which I did not purchase. But by then we had ROMs and emulators, so I could play them on the computer. Um, I also followed the anime pretty intensely all the way up to about high school, I would say. And once I graduated high school at about 17, I moved to Washington, D.C., where I lived there for about 4 years. Then I traveled to San Antonio. I was there for San Antonio, Texas. I was there for about 2.5 years. And then I moved to El Paso, where I've lived there for 5 years. And ever since 2 years ago, I got into the hobby, which was a surprise because I did not know that there was an actual Pokemon TCG. I actually just stumbled across the Walgreens one day and found some Pokemon packs, and I'm like, they still sell those? And I was like, cool. So that kind of got the ball rolling, but that combined with a few other videos by Hart, that kind of got the ball rolling in the sense that I found this Pokemon community on YouTube, and down the rabbit hole we go. Ever since then, I've been hooked.
It's always funny to me because even like myself, the reason I'm even on YouTube, and I've said that before, is the reason I'm on YouTube is because my son liked Leonhardt because he always liked the openings. Because we were playing, I started back in 2019 started playing. So once again, I was an old TCG player, so I never really collected. I kept binders of my playing cards and cards that I used all the way from like 99 to 2006. I used to play. And when I came back into Pokemon, I went right back into playing. But my son was the one who actually loved Leonhardt. He loved watching the pack openings and the excitement that came from that. Even right before the boom and everything really got crazy, we still had already found Leonhardt because he was one of the bigger channels even at that point in time. But it was just really cool because you bring up Leonhardt, and I know some people give him gripe, and I do. I think he's changed a lot since even the beginning of the pandemic when he was first just opening and having fun to more of a business mindset. But, let's be honest, a lot of us in this hobby slowly do drift that way, and that's just the way that sometimes you end up going, especially when you start to build channels and build reputation and build all this branding behind you. But yeah, Leonhardt seems to be a really common theme for a lot of individuals for why they got interested in Pokemon, or they at least have some tie to him, remembering him being the like a part of a reason why they're doing something in the Pokemon hobby. So it's really interesting you brought him up. But the other thing is, too, it's really, really cool that you're actually, and this is where I was talking to you. I found it very interesting that, Honduras, a lot of people think that's Central America. And we all instantly, even myself, you were asking me if I would be interested in some sales and some things down there. I'm like, well, I don't even speak Spanish, so it'd be really difficult for me to do that. And you were just like, no, they don't speak Spanish down here. They're actually English. And I was like, that
Yeah.
just blew my mind because I think a majority of people, especially, being in northern United States and being in northern Wisconsin, automatically think that if you go south of the border, you're speaking Spanish. So it was a really interesting turn of events when you told me that. I'm like, really? They speak English? So
They do, especially for tourism purposes. They love the American tourist aspect of it all. So yeah, they especially if you go up to the islands, the Bay Islands, people will speak English there, and then the other half will speak Jamaican English, which is different, I would say. But it's very interesting.
yeah, that seems like a very interesting combination. But it was just to me, it was just interesting that they actually speak. You know, because you go to like even Playa del Carmen and Cancun and that in Mexico, they usually do speak English fairly well. I'm not gonna say it's not like it's a native tongue or anything like to them. But they do learn it for the tourism factor of it. But the second you leave those towns or you leave the resort areas, it strictly goes back to Spanish. They don't speak English really at all, except for the touristy areas. But the way you made it sound like it's like all the shop owners, everybody down there is just pretty much an English speaking nation, which is I thought was pretty interesting. So that you could actually have conversations pretty easily down in that area. So
Yeah, definitely. They need the business.
yeah. So, but like I said, you're here. Choose your path. Like I said, great to have you on board. And it's going to be really. I thought it was really interesting just us talking and decide, because you were also talking about how we think that Pokemon's really big here in the United States. It is one of the biggest IPs when it comes down to TCGs. But then when you're going down to like Honduras and that area, now you were telling me, which I thought was really interesting, is that actually YuGiOh is big down there. Like Pokemon is like maybe second, third, but Yu-Gi-Oh is by far crushing all of these particular markets down in these countries, which I thought was very interesting, comparatively to most of the places that you think of. For Pokemon, Pokemon's just so huge, like Japan, Australia. You go to UK, America, even up into Canada. Pokemon is probably by far one of the bigger IPs when it comes to TCG, right? Probably followed really closely by Magic, and if not flip-flopping between Magic and Pokemon. And it was really interesting to me that Yu-Gi-Oh is actually the one that you said is crushing it down there.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Now it's Magic, and now it's One Piece.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it's a strange thing that's going on here. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh! I assume it was for the affordability of it.
Okay.
People are less attracted to Pokemon here just slightly because we just had prices go to the moon recently for alt arts. So people are taking a step back over here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is crushing it. One Piece, I don't understand what's happening because prices are still inflated, but people just really like One Piece.
Huh.
Uh, Something's going on where, especially all the kids here, they are cuckoo for One Piece, and I see it rubbing off just like Pokemon did on us, to be honest.
So that will be interesting futuristically. Once again, it's one of those things when we talk about One Piece and success, they have to get that younger generation, because even in the English market, I don't see a lot of, like, my son's age doesn't have a lot of interest in One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
Even my son has interest now. He's been doing a little bit with Magic, and he's having interest in a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh. And he's starting to dabble in it just because it's around all the time and there's a lot of tournaments. But One Piece is just one of those sets that it really seems to gravitate towards, like, people my age, that 30 plus area very well. And that's, of course, number one is the place with the actual capital to be able to drive these prices the way that they're going, number one. And number two, the other factor of that is that this One Piece is so old that people my age remember that anime when we were younger as well. So you're really playing on the nostalgia of the fact that we knew the anime, or the anime fans knew about it, number one. And number two, it's really driving towards a market where there's some older people with money. So seeing a younger group of people, like you're saying, down in Honduras area, interested in One Piece, where you can actually get people in their teens that are interested in something. Now that's what you really want to see for the success of a TCG, especially futuristically. If you're looking at this as, people call it investment, where it's no longer where you have something where you can see an outlet for future sales on these particular items. So really, really cool information when it came down to it, that was actually the fact that they are that way.
That, and also people don't consider premium for PSA 10s. There's no premium whatsoever. And here, what drives the market here is probably PSA 6s through PSA 8s because they know they can get it at a cheaper rate than they can get the raw card MSRP. So might as well get it for the cheaper discount. Then they just crack it open and stick it in their binders. So they have adjusted the way they purchase items, and eBay seems to be worldwide at this point. So sky's the limit. It's just underappreciated here because we don't have any grading system, any real way to judge these markets over here. So what I tend to do is give them a 20% discount, and they're pretty happy with that on MSRP.
Yeah. And that was another interesting thing when you brought it up. It's like, once again, when we talk about graded markets and we talk about, you know, overall what you're looking at when it comes down to a graded market and why is it successful. And like we were talking about before live is when you brought that up, I thought it was really interesting because I've always felt personally that the graded market in the United States, and especially in Canada, United States, it's a very arbitrary thing to where it really is just kind of a made up thing in a way. I know some people really want to claim it's something major, but you can't even say that PSA is a consistency because the PSA is not a consistency. The grader inside a PSA is consistent. So that grader may always grade the same way, but the other graders that are down the table grade differently than that grader. So there really is a difficulty to really say something is consistent when you have people with objection or objectively looking at something because they may look at different things. So once again, it comes down to that consistency factor, but to me, graded cards have always been one of those things, and I understand it. People want to say that we have something better than than everything else out there. So naturally, a PSA 10 takes it from every single alternate art Moonbryon and say, there's 50,000 of these things sitting out there. Well, no, now we're down. I'm one of 8,000, and I don't know what the current numbers. I think it's over 10,000 already, or probably over 15 at this point.
Must be. Yeah.
I think it crossed 10,000 a while ago, but I'm just throwing a number out there. Instead of being 100,000 of Moonbryons, you now have one of 10,000 Moonbryons. And if you can get that black label, now I've got one of, maybe 1,000 of these Moonbryons. And grading to me is where you're trying to create exclusivity in something to make it sound like it's better than everybody else's. But overall, it's still an objective matter to who you send it to, where you send it to, and overall, what it is actually, what's the difference between them. And if you're in a market like you're saying, where they're more interested in making binder collections,
Hmm.
and they're not looking for that exclusivity, then that exclusivity means nothing to them. You can see right there why that's so important in the PSA market to keep that exclusivity. Because if people start losing interest in that, it makes it so that it could actually depreciate in value, and you will not be able to capitalize on that particular value that we currently have in this market.
Well, especially when you have high pops for the popular alt arts that are all hyped up to the moon, and then you have other cards that might be population 9 and a PSA 10, and nobody's really seeing the value in that whatsoever. So it's weird, I would say. It's in the eye of the beholder in that sense.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's just it. I mean, it really is in the eye of the beholder. And that's where I keep talking about too, and that was always my concern this year talking about graded cards was, I see graded cards starting to depreciate in value because people don't trust the grading companies any longer. The more errors that they make, the more compounding errors that they have, the more issues they continue to create, the damaging a card or changing the grading scale every 6 months to a year to, easily crack slabs or easily counterfeited slabs. These are all factors that people start losing trust, and then when you start losing trust, you start losing that feeling that I don't really need that exclusivity when I could go buy this raw card for a lot cheaper price and not have to be worried about all the issues that may have occurred in this particular area of the market.
Definitely.
So but yeah, like I said, really interesting stuff. I mean, it's really interesting the difference in the feelings when it comes down to what's going on. What you're seeing in a different country or a different area of the world compared to the United States market, and that people don't really care about tents. I mean, if you were to say that in the United States market, people probably say you're crazy without, you actually being there if and actually being part of it. I mean, if someone didn't physically have a way of telling you in truth that no, this country has no care for tens, you'd be like, BS. There's no way that they don't care. You
Oh
know,
yeah, we're probably the ones that care the most,
yeah.
I would say.
But before I move on, I see one question from Snowgoon here. He said, "What was the site that you mentioned that what you used for tracking prices on Pokemon? It was different than TCG Player and eBay. I use Pokey Data IO. That's probably the number one that I use. There is also Pokey Price, I believe, also has a trackability, but I like Pokey Data IO is the one that I currently use. And then there is also a Dragon Shield that I have used as well. I like Dragon Shield a little bit because I can make lists and set them up for auto sale and things on there to send to TCG Player. But those are the two that I've mentioned in the past. Is Dragon Shield makes one, and then Pokey Data IO. But before we move forward too, I see a few people in the chat here that are familiar. For number one is going to be Drew, of course. He's number one, PK's number one mod in the game. But Drew is here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. And yes, we do have a reveal. That's right. We got IFOMO in person here on the channel. So we do have a little bit of a reveal for all the individuals here. I don't know if you've ever done a live before or a video where you've actually showed your face.
I did a live with UAP a few months ago, but that was so just unexpected. We just decided to go live from one day to another. Then YouTube made us wait 24 hours, and then we went live.
Okay.
And we were
So
just
I did.
talking the whole time.
I didn't get
Just
the exclusive then. I didn't get the exclusive face reveal. So it's been out there. But yeah,
the official interview, let's put it that
the
way.
official first interview. Yeah, we'll go with that. Okay. So, and we got Gimbo Slice. Thank you so much for joining in. Of course, great. Glad to see you here
Boo.
this evening, as always. Of course, the man, the legend, Mr. Walrus, sitting here, also joining us this evening with Walrus is jumping in with us as well. And of course, Snowgoon, thank you so much for jumping in as well. Glad to see everybody in the chat as we're getting kicked off here this evening. See, there's 10 people out there. So just a reminder, everybody, make sure you guys hit that like button too. It helps out quite a bit to get the stream going. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get back into the interview, which is the next item that I always try to ask people is, of course, is you kind of went through your history going through Pokemon. And you pretty much didn't play the TCG or really do much with TCG when you were younger. You really played the actual Game Boy and the video game version of it. So,
Yeah.
and I actually know a lot of people that were like that up until recent times where they finally saw that there was actually a TCG. So it was really interesting in Pokemon when you bring that up, how it was a lot of divide on that particular subject, that there were a lot of people that thought that Pokemon was just a video game, while other people knew that there was a TCG. And the people that played the TCG knew a lot about both ends of it. The people that played the TCG seemed like they knew of both and usually were involved in both. It's not like we didn't know that there was a game, but we knew about TCG. But it seems like a lot of people that were into the game never, a lot of times, didn't know much about the actual cards. So it was kind of an interesting little divide there in Pokemon that we're seeing another little kind of market or subset of people that are like, wow, there are actually cards and these cards are kind of cool. So once again, it just gives you another opportunity to potentially drag some people into a market that are familiar with Pokemon, but not necessarily familiar with the card side of the Pokemon TCG.
I see that with anime and I see that with the video games as well. See, Pokemon was more of a personal thing for me, especially the TCG here was so hard to get when I was a kid. They put premiums on packs like crazy. It was really expensive to actually get a booster pack, like a base set booster pack, for example.
Yeah.
That was for the richer kids, and that was their play money, let's put it that way. Uh, so yeah, the video games were the alternative, and it was more of a personal thing because we didn't talk to other people about how we played Pokemon or anything like that. It's just recently it's become socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love being able to go to a store and they say, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm like, "I flip Pokemon cards." They say, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that was something that's the one thing that I did love about 2020. Yeah, it created this craziness and caused all these scalpers and everything. There was all the issues that came with it. But like I've said on several lives, I love the fact that 2020 made it so that we could come out of the closet. We were no longer
Hmm.
doing this in a hidden basement where you were like the nerd because, you didn't really want to tell people that you did stuff with Pokemon cards. That this was not the cool thing to do. This is something that you did in secret. And if you liked playing the video game, like you said, you get the emulators. And I had an emulator on my cell phone, and I would play Pokemon Yellow, or I'd pull open, Silver, or I'd just, kind of play the different Pokemon games on the emulators. But it wasn't something that you sat there and did. Pokemon Go kind of opened that up a little bit and made it a little bit more fun and a little bit more open when it came down to the video games. But in general, the TCG still, the actual card game stayed very hidden away in the dark. And, you were the type of guy that sit there and like sneak into the LCS because you didn't want your work friends to see you sneak into the LCS to go play, Pokemon at night. You just did it so nobody knew you were doing it. And now it's like, what do you do? What do you do on the side? Well, I do Pokemon YouTube channel, and they're just like, well, that's cool. What's your, they want to know about it, and then you'll be in the chats, and you'll see people come in and comments. Yeah, I saw you at Walmart. Glad to see your videos. These are awesome, type things. And it's like, you wouldn't have been able to do that prior to 2020. It just did not have that popularity or that zing to it anymore.
I see the same thing with manga and anime as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a manga reader ever since I think early high school, just because I was caught up with all the animes and I wanted to read them. Now it's so socially acceptable to go to a Barnes and Noble and look of manga, and you can find manga.
Well,
It's not crazy to think like, oh, I have to get it from Japan. No.
no, you just go right to a United States sales place.
It's really nice. It's very heartfelt for me because it's like something that was like so personal to me, and now it's so popular. It's so everyone does it. It's like this is so cool.
Yeah. And anime, that's like you said, another one of those things that before anime was kind of like that weird section in Blockbuster when you were a kid that was hidden in the back corner where it's like you almost didn't want to walk to that corner because you'd be weird if you were renting out those particular movies. And now
I
it's
was
like,
getting all the Dragon Ball movies.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to say. You can go to Walmart now and they sell pretty much almost all the anime series now in Walmart, right in the actual video section. It's like, these would have never been here before. You really had to have very particular places to find these things. And these things are becoming more socially accepted where you're not like, the weirdo that's trying to hide, what you're doing on the side, which is, it's a really cool change that we've seen that's come out of the whole COVID era thing is that I think a lot of people being alone, I'm not saying it because they're alone, but it's because of the fact that people became more socially accepted to these little weird things that people used to be weird are now more socially accepted because they became more popular. Dragon Ball
Mhm.
Z becoming very popular again. I'm seeing a big change in the Dragon Ball Z market as well. A lot more people are watching it. A lot more people are. So I have it's app called Crunchyroll. It's just does anime, different kind of animes, and Dragon Ball is one of them. But they actually show you how many people are watching these particular anime as well. And it's interesting because when I got the app and I started watching Dragon Ball again, because I wanted to get caught back up. I missed there's like 5, 6 years in there that I've missed, and I thought it was really cool that I sat there and watched. And it was interesting because when I started watching, there was probably about 3,000 people viewing it at a time. So 3,000 people are watching the Dragon Ball series at any given time in I think it's the United States, Canada, and now you sit there and go on there and there's like 30,000 people watching it. So there's a 10x of people actually watching Dragon Ball Z, just the original series and Dragon Ball Super and all this just on that particular app. Number one, the app is advertising more, I know that, but number two, it's also showing that people are specifically joining that app and going into Dragon Ball, which was another one of those kind of new or animes that was there or TCGs that was there and kind of went away and now is kind of making another resurgence where if Bandai does it right, they could do some really good things with Dragon Ball Z as well, from what I'm seeing.
I think Bandai has a lot on their plate
They do.
because One Piece, Dragon Ball, they have very strong IPs. They have all the ability to do well. It's just they just need to get it together a little bit. I like what One Piece has done recently. They literally copied Pokemon and added reverse hollows
Yeah.
just recently. I'm like, yes, let's bring it.
A new rarity, exactly. I mean, something to draw in another group of people, which is huge. I mean, it's always good if you can get those new rarities, those new things that'll actually draw in a new market for those particular cards.
Yeah,
Rather,
give people just something to open with every pack, just something cool to look at. I mean, it's something. It helps, I
oh,
think.
it does. It absolutely helps. I mean, anything. It's kind of that's where part of me sat there and even said with Pokemon, part of me wishes that they would have removed reverse rares, um, or reverse hollows. To me they were just like I do wish that they would do something. Two of them in a pack is a little too much. One in
Yeah.
a pack was okay, but I mean the problem is that I think that they could have done something even cooler with the reverse rares, where if they were to make a couple stamped ones, come back to EX era where they had the stamped, reverse rares. Another
Yeah.
opportunity. You didn't have to do it all the time. You could just do the rare versions of the reverse hollows with the stamp. Would have been really cool. Nice little touch. Something to change it up a little bit to give some value to those reverse rares. Because some of the reverse rares I feel are a lot better than the hollows. I honestly think that the reverse rares are better than the hollow rares just because the hollow rares are just, yeah, it's a hollow pattern, usually right behind, and it's covered up by half the image. But the reverse rare is the whole card, which is a really cool aspect. But you get one or two in every pack, and it kind of dilutes the
Overwhelming.
oh, it's overwhelming. It's too much. So if you were to just kind of make a little bit of updates, even in Pokemon, to throw in some stamped ones, that'd be a really good way. Get rid of hollows and make them all. The hollows would be the stamp promo or stamp reverses. That'd be a nice little touch. Something a little bit different.
I like it.
Yeah, just kind of things you want to that you think about when you're sitting here at night, going, "What do they do differently that would really draw things in?" And that was one of them that just came to my mind. Is like, I miss the stamped hollows. I like stamped cards personally. As me as a collector, I enjoy stamped cards. I did like it in EX because that was always really cool. You could get like the unseen forces and all that with the stamped hollow reverses, which was how you knew they were a reverse a lot of times as well. So it was a really cool little touch. So, next question we usually go into just to keep things moving ahead a little bit. Otherwise, we'll just get stuck talking in Pokemon and how to improve it, and we'll never get anywhere. Um, Next thing I always ask is where do you plan on going in Pokemon? What is your foreseeable goals here with the Pokemon TCG? In growth wise, are you happy with what you're doing now? Are you trying to expand and move forward into something? Are you trying to or seeing a path in Pokemon that you can find value and continue to expand and do something with the IFOMO brand?
That's a good question. Currently, I'm very happy with where I am with the hobby, which is just passive income here every once in a while. Uh, I churn and burn, flip cards, grade them in order to make a profit, and it's been very successful for me to this point. But because I'm starting phase two of nursing, I can't really give more time than I currently am giving it, which is quite a bit already. If anything, I need to tone it down a little bit. But that's the beauty of this hobby that you can give it as little time or as much time as you want, and you can just kind of it'll still be there when you come back, you know? So it's like the way Java Kuma says it. If you want to make money very, very slowly, this is the hobby for you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you want to churn and burn, send submissions to PSA on a weekly basis, now we're talking. You can churn and burn inventory very, very quickly as long as you know what you're doing in the seller aspect of it all. But I'm very happy with where I am with the hobby and my little drawer of Pokemon cards.
Yeah, and some people are like I've even said that myself. I'm not planning on expanding much. I enjoyed what I'm doing. It's enough. Like I said, now I'm coaching baseball, so it's a great opportunity for me to just back down. I mean, I can just back down on how much I'm pushing, and Yeah, I'm not seeing the throughput of the sales, but that just means I don't buy as much. So it's just like it kind of ebbs and flows, and seasonally it ebbs and flows too. You know, some this fall we'll get really busy when we get into the holiday season. Springtime, summertime, late spring or through summer is usually a little bit slower. We start to see that slow down because people are outside. They're out playing baseball, they're out camping, they're out fishing, they're out doing stuff outdoors. So we really do see a slowdown when it comes down to the selling and the movements in the Pokemon TCG as well. And it's the same thing on YouTube and TikTok. We see reductions in the amount of views. We start seeing these little drawbacks, which isn't a bad thing. It's just normal ebbs and flows when it comes down to this actual, just the market itself. But like you said, it's really nice when you find that nice little peak. And like you said, Okuma said that just absolutely perfect when he said that. If you want to make money very slowly, you can make money very slowly in the Pokemon TCG. You can just pick and choose, do what you want here and there, do a little bit more, and just keep moving forward. Or if you want to, you can become Dan at Catch 'em All Collectibles in a few years just by pushing and getting into those niche markets, becoming very familiar with what the high end stuff is, knowing how to work around some of the sales taxes, or not sales taxes as much as just as getting around those sales fees too. It's a huge factor when it comes down to success as well. It's finding those little ways around things and getting that backgrounder where people are confident and just maybe buying directly from you as well, where you don't have to deal with these offsites and things like that that actually take extra costs. So there are very good ways to be successful in this hobby. It's just it's up to you. It 100% is up to you on how you do it.
And adapting to the current market as it is, like things change all the time. Like for example, now mega evolutions are getting hyped. I have a very strong feeling that that hype is going to die down for a little bit, especially now that we heard that, well, we have a dragon set coming,
Mm-hmm.
and they just recently announced a uh, possibility that there's going to be an evolution set.
Yes.
So where does that leave us next year when the megas come out, when everyone has parked all their money into all these booster boxes for the dragon set and for the evolution set?
Yep.
So, you just have to adjust as you go. I was considering holding a lot of mega evolutions till next year, but I've recently stocked a lot of inventory. Might as well just start grading them and getting rid of them because it's already hyped.
Yeah, I was just gonna pull open because I have. You and I were talking about it, and it was kind of funny because when we started talking about it, I think we both were pretty much doing the exact same move at the exact same place at the exact same time, which was
Oh
literally
yeah.
we were talking about because we were just laughing. It's just like you were talking about Mega EXs and grabbing them, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of interesting because I've been doing the exact same thing. Has just been starting to hoard, these EXs because it's like you're gonna see this trend happen where people adjust." And we
Hmm.
have seen the value of these actually slowly going up. I mean, it's not like crazy doubling, tripling, 5xing in a matter of a couple days. We're seeing nice slow growth on these particular cards because once again, another one I've been seeing a lot of growth on, which is funny, is this one, the Pidgeot EX. And I bought this one for $1, but it's already $3. Why? Because the Pidgey EX deck is becoming very, very popular in gameplay. It's getting notoriety, even though it's an Obsidian Flame card. But when you put in Pidgeot EX, this one comes up as much as the new ones do. So once again, it's one of those things. When you have EX on something, it tends to draw people potentially into the older ones too, where they start
Hmm.
seeing older cards that are of that same Pokemon with the EX tag, and it opens up their eyes to a market that they may not have even seen. So we're seeing that kind of expand a little bit when it comes down to the EX market.
Not only that, but XY EXs, basic EXs have great margins.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, the M, the Mega Alakazam EX, just the basic one, in a PSA 10 goes for about $150 low listing on eBay.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to sell for that, but the margins, yeah, I think it costs like 7.99. As long as you have a good eye on eBay and you know how to source properly, you can stockpile a lot of good stuff
Mm-hmm.
because people are trying to get rid of it on the monthly basis. I've noticed that you see new sellers typically every month. in a cyclical period, whether it's because a new set came out or just people decided that they're getting rid of their stuff. And it's easier to find them on eBay just because they're new sellers. And also, if you look at recent listings, it's quite easy to pinpoint all the new cards, minty or not minty.
Yeah, and with the dragon set up, one of them I was thinking of is I just picked up a bunch of these ones too, which are the Rayquaza EXs. Another one.
I almost bought that card recently. Yeah,
So I
what
bought
a great card.
I bought three of these, and they were I think 650 a piece. But
So cheap.
but there
And then
again, you got a dragon set coming out that you know they're going to have a Rayquaza EX inside of that. I mean, it's almost a given if you're going into a dragon set. Number one, number two. The other reason I got these cards is that if you can flip these, even in a 9, these are going for about $45 to $50 in a PSA 9, and if you go to a 10, they're a $100 card. So once again, you're looking at, like you're talking about, that big market availability on these cards to really be able to have some movement on them. And that's today. Now, what's going to look like when this Dragon EX set hits? That's going to be the other question is when this Dragon EX set hits and you got a new Rayquaza EX out there, what is that going to do to the old Rayquaza EXs and possibly draw people into them as well?
have you seen the new anime Pokemon Horizons?
I have not. I was actually just going to. I've been having a hard time with it. I know Jacob wants to go and watch it because
I I couldn't watch it. I mean, as much as I like the show, I just couldn't watch it because it's a little bit too kiddie for me. But there is, I'm not gonna say anything. I would recommend you watch it. There is a Rayquaza that comes out in the anime, and you should definitely check it out because it might be hinting at a possible alternate art. I mean, SIR,
okay.
or it's it's a possibility. The hype is there. I just don't know if Pokemon's gonna do it or not. Not yet.
Be interesting because, like I said, I've personally been staying away from Horizons just because personally it's hard for me that since I've been involved in Pokemon in the anime part of it, which was when it first came out, it's always been Ash and Ash's Pikachu. You've had Brock and Misty come and go. They still come into the anime sometimes and leave again. But for me, it's been really hard knowing that Ash was no longer and Ash's Pikachu were not going to be in the new anime series. It's been one of them lines that I have not personally been able to push myself over. So I figure what's going to happen is that my son's been pushing to watch it. He wants to get caught up on the anime. It just got released on Netflix, so Netflix is now up with the half because they usually come out in like half season blocks. So we don't have TV like it's normally on Cartoon Network, but we don't have Cartoon Network anymore. We don't have DirecTV any longer, so we gotta wait until it comes out on Netflix, or I gotta go and I think maybe it's on Crunchyroll. It was supposed to be, but I don't know if it is or not yet. I haven't looked, but
I don't think so.
huh?
But I have Crunchyroll too.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's on there.
They were talking about it. I thought I saw an email that they were supposed to be bringing it in, possibly, but I haven't seen it yet when I was looking. So, but anyways, I gotta wait until Netflix releases it, and I did see that they did release pretty much the first, I think, 12 episodes that are out there now on Netflix. So, he's been pushing to watch it. I've been hesitant, so I figure what's going to happen is he's going to end up be watching it one day, and I'll probably sit down next to him and probably start watching it at that point. He'll probably be my icebreaker to get me into it, but it's one of them things. It's like I've watched the anime ever since it came out for, every year since it's come out, and it's like I'm having a real hard time getting over that.
It's worth watching for that Rayquaza, I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll be the reason I finally pull the trigger and do it.
Sounds good.
So, next thing I always ask people is when it comes down to the financial side. Now, this is always the one that's kind of tricky, and I don't necessarily want exact numbers or anything that you're uncomfortable with. But what I do like to ask is that, number one, when it came down to financials, how did you start into the Pokemon business? Did you start off with, like myself, I started with $4,000, and I kind of used that to leverage myself to grow, move, do whatever I wanted, buy and sell and trade, and then because I just kept bringing money in during the boom and during things when I wanted until it became self-sufficient, or I just tried to make it self-sufficient. Or do you start off with a monthly budget? Do you start off, what were your steps to really growing your, financial side of your Pokemon endeavor?
For me, since I was a full-time student at the time, I literally didn't have time for anything else. So I didn't have any disposable income. But I really, really wanted to get into the TCG, so I decided that I would donate plasma.
Okay.
And I actually donated plasma for about half a year, which equated to about $3,000. And that is basically the cushion I used. And since it was at a donate to pay transaction basis where you go, you get paid, it was like, let's say 50 to 60 bucks every time I donated. So small increments like that help me budget my money wiser, let's put it that way.
Okay.
And uh, I say that, but the first actual card I purchased was the Lugia V Alt Art. So I went pretty crazy from the get-go buying that card. Just thinking in the back of my head, I want a well-centered one that doesn't have any problems in the back so I could see if I could get a PSA 10. Uh, it worked. I don't know how it worked because I didn't know what I know now, but fortunately it did. And slowly but surely, I learned budgeting, I learned finance, I learned business, I learned economics, the markets, seller psychology, market psychology. It all came through a lot of videos and a lot of different experiences and just taking that leap of faith and just doing your thing. And you're going to make mistakes because everybody does. It's just fortunately in this hobby, for me at least, the mistakes were not devastating, meaning that at worst I'd lose a little bit of money or break even on my purchases. But the biggest waste was time, I would say, especially because PSA would grade within 3 months. So the process was a lot slower back then. Now, fortunately, we don't have to worry about that. So, finance wise, I started on a budget through donating plasma over a period of half a year until I was comfortable enough to not have to do it again, which is interesting because about a month ago, I was in a Rip and Shippers live talking randomly, talking about how I donated plasma. And one of the girls, shout out to Lisa if she ever watches this, she actually is dependent on those plasma transfusions. And she said literally the reason she's still alive is thanks to those things. So it's very inspiring and it's very interesting how that came to be. And it makes me think like as soon as I get back to El Paso, I want to start doing it again just
Just to help.
for yeah, because it's a service to people who need it,
Yeah,
you know. So I'm actually very proud of
and there are
doing that,
people
even
that
though it was for.
yeah, there
Mhm.
are absolutely people that need that too. I mean, it works out good because I mean, even I did that. I think that that was like the number one ploy when I was in college too, was just go give plasma because a little bit of side money, you could make a little bit of cash, and BioLife was really big around here, and then they would take it. And the thing is that's what I always later on in life, probably about 10 years ago, I kind of realized how many people actually do need that particular thing, even to just live. I mean, it's not like they're I always thought it was used as like a blood transfusion. People needed it in an emergency situation. Red Cross would just like bank this stuff, and it expires at some point. But I found out that it actually doesn't expire like it does with blood. So plasma
Mhm.
actually can store for a really long period of time comparatively, which is why it's got its benefits. And the other part is how many people actually need that plasma in order to help them with some autoimmune diseases too are really common for it. Um, there's actually like several autoimmune diseases that actually need plasma in order for their body to stop fighting pretty much their own body, and it just keeps them in that healthy balance. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting. It's one of those things. I think if I'm the same way, if it was closer and there was a location that was closer that wasn't like 3 hours, 3.5 hours away, I probably would start doing it again just because it was very helpful, not just for the money factor, but just for the fact that it is a needed service for some people out there for sure.
Absolutely.
So here's my pitch. Here's our pitch for the video. If you are available, even though you may not like needles, people do depend on plasma. So if you
Mhm.
do have a little bit of available time, please join your local plasma donation places to help a life. Okay, now we move on.
Beautiful said.
So moving on, and I love the comments here. I was just kind of watching them after you said that because I was kind of curious what would come up in the comments. And
I was wondering that too.
we got Gimbo Slice, Blood for Bulbasaurs, and we got Andy Hale on
Sure.
here. So
It's blood, sweat, and tears, so it's
yeah,
that's
he said,
why, in that sense, you see money as very literal in that sense, where it's very interesting because a lot of people have disposable income, see money as in an abstract fashion, whereas if you literally don't have any, you're counting your money very carefully. That's why with the process that I've built in order to flip the cards is just specific to my own discipline because I have to be so harsh because I have a limited amount of funds available. As I grow this hobby more and more, money starts becoming a little bit more abstract because you have either cushions of money either lying in slabs or lying in cards or other sources where you can get your money from. But it's interesting because I want to add that to any tips for new people as well.
yeah, and that'll be coming up here because that is always a really good section for people that are in it. Of course, hearing tips of what people have learned. I mean, how do you take, you know, this? How do you take this card and create income off of this particular item? A lot of people
Mhm.
thinks it's just buy and sell, and that's not necessarily the only trick that you need to know. And that'll also come up here, and maybe we could hit that a little bit right now because there was a question coming up here. I think it was from Snowgoon here, and where was it? Give me 1 second. He's asking about sourcing. So, and I thought that was really interesting part of the topic since we were moving in here. Oh, here it goes. It's Andy Hale actually was where are you sourcing raw cards to grade? Are you finding it scalable? So that's a really good question because there are quite a few places that you could source. I'm kind of curious on where you're having success on finding sourcing cards because I think that's one thing that personally, in a way, I have a hard time giving that information because you don't want to necessarily send 100 new people potentially into the market where you're getting these cards. But on the other hand, some of the places that we source from are readily available to everybody anyways. So, I mean, I'm already in a battleground, so adding a few more people really wouldn't change that.
Let's see. I started sourcing a lot on TCG Player. Remember I told you when Nostalgianomics started talking about how TCG Player wasn't the best place to get PSA 10s. That's when I started checking out TCG Player because no one was going to be looking for them. Um, that since then, I haven't, just because I haven't found new sellers on TCG Player that list with pictures, because
Yeah.
I always make sure that I see the card before I purchase it. So it's tough with TCG Player a little bit. There are tips as to little things you can do to save certain. We'll go over it at some point, but eBay really is the best place if you want to find mint cards that you can grade in a PSA 10. It's just you have to know how to find the cards. And typically I go by seller. Because if you can find a mint card that looks like a PSA 10 from a seller, then you're most likely going to find more inventory that he has to sell that looks like a PSA 10. There are no guarantees, of course, but if you can learn how to filter out certain things into eBay, like for example, putting in the search bar Pokemon EX Mint or Pokemon EX NM/M, and then you filter to buy it now, not graded, and I think that's enough, I would say. What I do is that I devote maybe like a Saturday a month to sourcing through Pokemon EX Mint, and then I just go buy sets. And then 99% of the stuff you find is not going to be mint, but that leaves 1%. And those one percenters more than likely are new sellers who have other inventory that they're willing to sell as well. So it's a very rinse and repeat process for me, but it's proven very fruitful for me, especially with XY. I am very focused on XY just because of margins. For me, XY has the best margins that I've seen so far.
Yep.
So that's why I stick to XY, and I'm gonna stick to XY until probably next year.
Okay.
Because right now all the hype is on the alt arts. The dragon set is going to be hype. The evolution set is going to be hype. And what is going to happen as a result of that? I assume Sword and Shield Evolving Skies is going to get pumped a little bit more because of that. So Sword and Shield is not on my radar, even though I feel like if you're new to the hobby, I feel like your best bet is going for those guaranteed minty cards,
Yeah.
which would be Scarlet and Violet or Sword and Shield. So to each
It's
his own. It just depends on where you are in this hobby.
yeah. And I see Andy Hale just put on there. Oof, buying raw singles has brought me some of the worst experience in the hobby. It seems to attract a lot of dishonest people. You're always going to run into that, and once again, it's kind of one of those things that gets to be a touch and feel thing. And I agree, I have really good success on eBay, but it's a lot of really picking through cards and images and being sure you want someone new, because like you said, my experience has been pretty much the same. I find a buyer that's selling near mint cards that you say are really, like you would say, well centered, look clean. Of course, pictures can always be deceiving.
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
they take the pictures and stuff can always be deceiving. You can always ask for more pictures. I've done that before, where if I'm doing a bigger purchase or trying to make that decision, I will have them take more pictures with different lighting. I'll ask them to put lighting on it so I can really see that hollow pattern, or trying to really make sure the surfaces are clean, because sometimes you can hide that with certain lighting, that their surface is better shaped than what it really is. But you're right. When you find a buyer that's not grading cards and just selling good premium raw cards, you can almost go down a little bit of a rabbit hole with that seller a lot of times, because a lot of times they are pretty honest. They usually have multiple items, multiple cards or different eras, or sometimes they are specifically an EX guy. So you got a bunch of EX cards all being sold by one person. You can usually kind of bank down on that person and really get some cards out of them that way. So it can be a horrible experience, and regardless where you go and if you move through things, there is always a really good potential you're going to have a horrible experience when it comes down to trying to source cards. Sourcing cards is probably one of the most difficult things to learn. Um,
Yeah.
Lately, honestly, I've been having a lot of success in sourcing cards from claim sales. So if you go on to like TikTok or even Instagram now, eBay Live, I think there's some of them as well. They do quite a bit of claim sales, whereas where some of these have come from, even this Rayquaza. Because the nice thing is about claim sales is that they will hold them under the camera, and it's quick. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're wanting to buy something, you got to make a quick decision on these cards, because it's basically whoever says the card's name in the comments first gets it. So but they'll sit there and they'll flip it back and forth, and you can get a good look at it in different lighting with them moving it, which is a really good help as well to make the decision on whether or not it's something you want to take a risk on. So that's how I ended up getting these three Rayquaza EXs at 650. Is they were in a claim sale, and they flipped them through and they looked very clean. There was no real marking on them, and they came in and they're extremely clean actually. Overall, two of them I'm going to grade. One of them has got a little bit of a white mark on the corner, but that looks like it was not even. It's hard to see, so it's one of those ones that probably come back as a 9 because of the mark. But still, claim sale, very very good. Did really well overall when it comes down to that. The other part is local LCSs. Um, Sometimes they mark them down in price. Sometimes they mark them at the current market value when they bring them in. Sometimes they're continually floating them, even like my experience. But in general, getting the card in hand is always a great way to source. So LCSs can also be a really good sourcing place if you have them local to you. Now, I don't have very many local to me that have access, so usually it's whenever I go out of town or to a bigger town, I'll go hit a bunch of the LCSs looking for those.
One other thing I did want to mention is I have a plug, for example, just a guy who sources lots on eBay, and he buys lots. He sends me pictures, and him and I have an arrangement that I just want mint cards, and he understands that. So what he does is, out of all the lots, he separates the mint lot, and he sends me pictures, and that way I can pick and choose what I want, and that works very well for me, at least. I have a very good relationship with this person. Shout out Tyler. Um, so typically, how it goes down is I ask him I want the mint cards, and what he does is he adds a little premium for himself. That way he makes his money, and I don't really ask questions because he's doing all the work, like all of the work. He's checking all the lots on eBay. He's purchasing the lot. He's taking the risk when it comes to uh, knowing whether the cards are going to come in mint condition or they're all going to be damaged, you know? Sometimes they don't specify the condition of the lots. So he, I see that he should be paid a little bit of a premium for that. Of course, within certain limits. I can't go overboard and not make any money myself, but we have a mutual relationship. If you guys can find plugs, that could seriously facilitate your sourcing on eBay.
Yes. That's a huge thing too, is finding these individuals. You know, even like TikTok or any other places, getting those sources are definitely a good plug to get in there and get them sources. If you can find a reliable source one time, a lot of times that gives you multiple places to get to. And that's where I always say, I don't, like Tyler. I mean, I'm glad you'll put someone out there. I could go through my list. I know there's a couple of them, but realistically, a lot of them are starting to dry up too. I've noticed. Either A,
It happens.
huh?
It
They're
happens.
yeah, they're getting. It seems like they're getting out of it. They're moving on to new things, or it seems like they're getting enough people on them now that they're starting to raise their premiums. Instead of being a little bit under market value because you're working directly with them, they'll sell right at market value again, and that makes it a little bit more difficult as well. If they don't have buyer fees and things like that they're paying, but they're still charging right at market value for something, it makes it more difficult to have that cushion in there for you to be able to do anything with it.
Definitely. But at the same time, you make it worth their while by purchasing a large chunk of their inventory all at once. That
Yes.
helps for the next inventory or the next lot that they're going to purchase. So it's kind of everyone working to benefit the one person who's doing all the work.
Yeah. And that's just it. I
But
mean, if they're going to do large batches and that kind of stuff, definitely there's some really good discount availables. Like you said, it's a lot of times if you are buying large bulk sets, so if you're willing to drop hate to say it, a couple $1,000s sometimes on a bunch of singles, they're willing to give you a little bit better pricing on those particular ones too. So yeah, like you said, it's got some really good things. If you can find one source, a lot of times stick with that source as long as you can, because if they're good and you're getting what you need out of them, they will continue to give you what you need or what you're looking for. They're pretty honest if you get in with them.
yep,
Usually it takes about one trial buy from what place, and if you buy like a lot of 10, yeah, you got a little bit of risk into it, but worst case scenario is you can just trade them out and make a little bit of a loss, and sell them on TCG Player, just get rid of them, whatever you need to do. You might take a
exactly.
little bit of a loss, but you're not going to take a huge hit. I mean, there is always risk involved because you got buyer's fees and shipping and all that. But once you find one that's reliable and you get what you buy 10 cards and the 10 cards come in as described and the pictures were good, you've got a good source, and you can continue to watch some sources over and over and over again because they'll continually bring new cards through if they're into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I wanted to just give the example of how I met this person. Uh, it's not very hard to find these people. He sold me a reverse Delta Species Espeon that
Oh,
honestly, I love that card. And it was in such perfect condition. I was like, I have to talk to this person. I need to make something work out where we can both benefit from this. So I told him, I just sent him an email saying like, "Hey, I really love the card. I'm in the market for mint cards. Do you think we can work something out? I'm willing to pay a slight premium," and that kind of just got the ball rolling. And it's that easy. And it's you can do it on eBay, you can do it on TCG Player. The only thing is I should have kept doing that. It's just that with the limited amount of capital I had, I didn't want to get various plugs. And then not be able to follow through
Yeah.
with them. I just kept one plug. That's it. And ever since it's been enough, but I still source on eBay.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
he typically brings a lot to me every 2 to 3 months, I would say.
that that's one of those things. It just continually keeps you moving forward too. If you know a time frame when they come, and you know you can live through that time frame, then you're just fine. And like you said, you can always do a little bit of side sourcing. They don't care. They know it's
Mhm.
business. But if you build up a couple plugs, I had one. Like I said, they're kind of going over premium, so a lot of times they're trying to chase that market. So like for alternate darts and stuff, instead of even being a market, they're starting to get enough people chasing that they're like, well, this I can get 10% over market value because these people will pay for it. And it's like, well, then you're gonna have to go to those people because I'm not gonna pay 10% over market value because then I gotta hope that the market does actually get there. Number one. And then there's no cushion for me at all in this particular card because I got to hope it goes over that by 23% in order for me to make any profitability on that card, or it's got a grade of 10 guaranteed, or I'm not going to make that money. So that's just those
Mhm.
things. I mean, sources will change too. Most of them stay reliable, but you got to be fluid in this too. If you're planning on staying in it long term and you're looking for those sources, you definitely have to be fluid when it comes down to the purchasing of these particular items.
Yeah, definitely.
And I
I
found it.
couldn't
Oh,
So
go ahead.
I couldn't get any more. I couldn't risk letting down the one person that does bring me lots every
Yeah.
so often, like every 2 to 3 months. So that's why every time I have a feeling that he will, I always have a little cushion of money for him. It just treat others the way you'd like to be treated, you know? And I
Yep.
want to be very on point with him because he's always so on point with me.
Yeah. And building, once again, something that I've talked about several times on here. Building relationships in this hobby is definitely the number one most important thing that you can do. And I'm
Hmm.
sure this will come up in the tips part for growing too. I'm sure that's probably one of the things that you're kind of leaning towards too on the moving forward in the tip part is strong relationships build future expansion and growth.
Definitely.
Honestly, if you build up and you get a good relationship with a place, you continue to work with that relationship, and as long as you both work on that relationship, you'll go really far with that one, and you'll continue to help each other. And once again, you can't have a relationship that just benefits you. If it doesn't benefit them, then there isn't going to be a long lasting relationship. They're like you said, I'll pay a market price for something. Let's say I don't have a problem paying current market value on something. If these people do it on the side, they're making that extra 10, 13% that they would have lost on eBay or on TCG Player, wherever they would have sold. So they're making an extra 13%, which they're happy with. And I'm buying a bulk of cards that I know are good sources. And
Mhm.
overall, you can have some when they come, they're going to be as described, which gives you that availability to be able to do and flip and do it. You need to still be profitable and not have to worry about that. So definitely, and I've even talked about that with LCS. I helped an LCS when they got slammed with product at the end of 2021. By doing so, that gave me the availability to continually get product over and over and over again every set because they were willing to work with me. I'd buy it at their pricing, whatever they said, plus shipping, and it worked for them because it helped their numbers go up because they were purchasing more, with me buying from them as well to get those initial orders in. So they got the benefit of getting a little bit of a discount because it increased their volume that they were purchasing. It wasn't huge, but they started realizing that there was like three of us doing it, and it lifted their value where they were actually making more money on these products. Same thing. I helped them once get out of a jam because they needed capital to survive because they had to buy all this Pokemon product with Chilling Rain, Brilliant, or what was it, Battle Styles, Chilling Rain, Evolving Skies, Fusion Strike, and Celebrations all came out in one big slam, and that was a big issue that they had. So they needed the capital. Continue to
I
do
see.
that relationship, and then even to this day, if I wanted to, I could always go back to that relationship. Now, I found other sources since then, and if they ever get in a bind, I would buy more stuff from them just to help them out. I'd be there for them, but right now they're selling everything they have with no problem. They've got an increase of people coming in, so it wasn't a big deal. They're keeping their discount, they're happy, and everything keeps moving forward. So
That's excellent. Yeah.
yeah, it was just an interesting arrangement that worked out really well for the time frame. So you were
And if you
talking
can,
about the reverse Delta species, and this is probably one of my favorite Flareon cards.
Oh,
The reverse Delta Species
so nice.
Flareon card.
Yeah. Oh, I love those reverse Delta Species cards.
Yes,
And I was considering getting the Umbreon at one point, but that ship has sailed so long ago.
that
It's
card is expensive.
Yeah, and also the whole idea of Delta species at this point, it's too hard to find a raw card that'll PSA 10. You
Especially
could
in
find
reverse.
PSA 9, especially a reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, PSA 9's more likely. It's just, I don't know. I have to go back to vintage and start grading those because really PSA grades them completely differently, and it's overwhelming sometimes.
And
Stick
that's
to what you know. That's another tip.
yeah. And this one I purchased just because it was a really good price on it. It's an 8, which I get, but overall the centering is really good on it. I've been trying to find why it got an 8. The only thing I see is there's like a little bit of a whitening in the corner, which, personally, if I were to break this out and probably put it inside of like PK does, put it inside of the card saver and kind of
Yeah.
rub the corner down a little bit, I think you could almost get that down to bare minimum. So I probably would be comfortable with that potentially getting a 9, which I'd be happy with to go from a CGC 8 to a PSA 9. But keep your fingers crossed that I could possibly get a 10 out of it. Very, 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 very slim. I could probably increase it to a 9 for sure, but I'd be happy with PSA 9 on that card as well. It's a very nice card. I love the Flareon Delta Species Reverse Hollow. I think that is an awesome card, especially with the stamp. Once again, stamp promo cards, stamp cards, I really do like. I missed the days of actually having stamped reverses. Those were always really nice to get.
I'm pretty sure history will repeat itself and there'll be a thing again
I'm sure.
at some point.
At some point. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Pokemon does repeat, and it does seem to go back into the reciprocating cycle. So,
It does make me think like there will be a time where GXs come back and then all the GXs that we currently have are going to pop off. The art for basic GXs is very nice.
yeah.
Like the Raikou GX, the basic one, where there's like thunder coming, well, lightning coming out of its body, radiating from its body. It's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it was like one of the ones I just picked up on a claim sale were these two. So I got we picked up the Mew GX. So, and then I got the Dialga GX. And I
Nice.
really do like the Dialga. I think it's a really clean looking card.
I used to have that Mewtwo GX. I graded it in a PSA 10, but I it was the churn and burn
Yep.
mentality. I was trying to disassociate my emotions from the card, so I was just churning and burning. It's so hard to do that sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when you get like certain cards. Like my favorite card, I think, probably is the Lugia V Altar from Silver Tempest. I've graded that card probably 10 times, and each time I've sold it.
Yeah.
In fact, 2 days ago, I just got a submission back from PSA that I just sent to Pokemon Wonder, and I got two PSA 10 Lugia alt arts.
Very nice.
I'm not even gonna get to see them.
They just got turned and burned. They're gone.
Fell into the hype, baby.
Well, might as well because the thing is that eventually the hype will slow down, and if you keep selling into it, you're just making profit until at some point in time they will cap out for a long period of time. And if you want to purchase them, then just get them at that point. You've already made your capital or your gains on these, and then you can buy one for your collection on your side.
Absolutely. They're not going anywhere. There's
Nope, they just
thousands in a PSA 10.
yep, they just keep rotating around, and there'll be more of them out there. There's the last time I looked, I thought there was like 4,500 of them in a PSA 10 right now.
Okay. Yeah, still, whatever's over 1,000, it can't be good for pop.
No, you're talking about the Lugia V alt art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was just over 45 the last time I looked.
Okay.
But you
Well,
gotta remember that's the only big chase card from Silver Tempest, so that was the first one that everybody really graded when you pulled it. So
up until now that you told me about that Dragonite with the Silver Tempest stamp, and I'm all over that now. I really want that card. And
I
actually, my plug, Tyler, he actually just showed me that card in one of his binders. I'm like, Is it well centered? Is
Yeah.
it minty?
Is it?
All right, cool.
See, I caught that one and I was like, wow, the second I saw it, I'm like, where did this come from? Someone in the chat finally figured it out where that came from, and it was actually from the UK. So it's a UK card that's in the United States, and there's quite a few of them actually. Not quite a few, but there's enough of them that they are available out there in the market. So it's really interesting that one of them cards just kind of showed up. So, but yeah, it was one of them cards that it's like I found it. I'm like, I saw it. I was looking through stamp promo cards, and it was like I saw that Dragonite, and I'm like, I've never seen that Dragonite. Where did this come? Where did this particular card come from? Because it's like I like stamp promo cards, so I'm usually watching them, and I'm always trying to collect as many of them as I can. And kind of building binders of stamp cards, even from pre-release kits and built-in battle boxes and all those promos. I'm always trying to get at least one of each, just to have some of them. And I was going through like stamp promos because I was looking for new stamp promos, and all of a sudden I saw that. I'm like, I don't have that one. Where did this one come? How do I get this? And I'm like, it wasn't in built-in battle boxes. I have all the ones from the built-in battle boxes, so it didn't come from that. But it looks like a built-in battle because of the way the promo is on there. And then I found out that, okay, the United States, you could get the GameStop version of it, which I had the GameStop version of it. There was the EB Games version of it in Canada, but there weren't any with Silver Tempest that I could find for sale in the United States. But yet here they were on eBay and available in places, and I thought that was really, really interesting. And that's where I found out that someone came on the live and said this was a promo that was released in UK. And it was a UK exclusive promo, and there apparently was a batch of them released in the United States through somewhere, whether it was accidentally sent to like GameStop or something, and they got into the U.S. market pretty readily. So they were available in the U.S. market. So
Interesting.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
really interesting.
And we were also talking, I think it was last week, about the World Cup and the futsal
Yep.
cards
Yep.
possibly going up. I just saw how much those cards are raw. They're like 50, well, 30 to 50 bucks depending on the card.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just buy it graded.
Yeah, I mean, I bought them when I bought them when they were a lot lower than that. They've been steadily going up now for the last 2 years. Well, they were going up 2 years ago, and then they kind of plateaued. They kind of sat. But I think the most expensive one I bought was the Pikachu ones. So I bought like 5 Pikachu ones, and they were like $32 at the time. I think the Pikachu one now is like almost 70 on that particular card. No, the other way. Eevee was the $32. The Eevee one was the more expensive of them. So they were
Yeah.
both about 30, but Eevee was like 32 and Pikachu was like 28. Pikachu now is like 55 and Eevee is almost $70 for that card now. And then you got Score Bunny, Sobble, and Grookey are the other three that were inside of there as well. So all of the which are doing extremely well when it comes down to their value. I think the cheapest one now is like $38, 35, 38.
That's expensive.
It is, and I mean they were like the Grookey, Score Bunny, and the Sobble were like $10 a piece, $8, $10 a piece. They were really inexpensive when they were first came out.
Hmm. Right under our noses.
I know it's just funny, but you were asking me about those. And I'm like, oh yeah, I already collected them a little while ago.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's just one of them things. I saw them, and it's just like they were in kits, or they were. How did I get them things? They were in some promo for the cup, and that's where they were out. When they first came out during a boom, because they came out in like 2020 or something like that, 2020, 2021, and I picked them up then. And I thought they were really expensive at that time, but now it's like, they weren't that expensive.
They printed them to the ground afterwards, maybe like a year later, and there was a lot of hype. I think had just started. Yeah, because it was every 4 years is a World Cup.
Uh huh.
The next one is 2026, so the last one was 2022. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had just started, and I think they had just reprinted
Yeah.
the promo and flooded the market with it. So it was just all a lot of negativity around that. I was like, oh, look, soccer. I
Yeah.
like soccer. Central Americans like soccer.
So perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was just it. And then when they came out, I guess that I don't remember the time frame. I just remember that the most expensive one that I bought were the Pikachu and the Eevee. Of course, not surprising. They were the biggest hyped ones. And then yeah, I think you're right. They got printed really heavy, and then I actually lost money on those for a while. But I really didn't care. I just kind of put them in storage. I figured you don't, like you said, there's always another World Cup. and
Yeah.
when a World Cup happens, a lot of times when events happen, all of a sudden someone sees something and it kind of sparks off, and then you might see increase. But they've done it on their own, just naturally over time. People have had more and more interest in those particular cards. So, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just like worst case scenario is about Pokemon that I'll tell anybody is that you just have to sit on it for a while.
True.
Mistakes can be buffed out if you're not in a hurry by just waiting. If you're in a hurry, sometimes you take the loss and you move on and just try and find the next lucrative item, and you can make up losses too that way. There's always
That's
options.
Yeah, I typically go for the opportunity cost, lose a little bit of money, and try to find something that'll PSA 10.
Yep, and just move on. That's what I mean. There's two options. Singles, I'm more likely to just sit on them because a lot of times I buy singles that I enjoy anyways. So, or I do know mentally, I know that these might be a 10-year investment. So I'll buy cards that I think will be a long-term investment. Sealed product is completely different. I hold certain amounts of products I know I'm going to hold. But on the other hand, if I get an opportunity to sell half or, two-thirds of the amount I have on the shelf to just not have any cost in it, I will do
Hmm.
that as fast as I can because I would rather not have, value sitting on the shelf, dollars sitting on the shelf for a long period of time for sealed product because I could turn and burn it and make something else. The faster I can move that, the more money that I can make, the more money I make, the more I can move into something else or put more into my sealed binder collections or, my long-term investment stuff such as singles and that.
So you see yourself churning and burning through sealed a lot.
I do, yeah, quite a bit.
That's that's another way of doing it. I considered it. I just feel like the initial price point is too high for me.
So once again, it's sourcing. Sourcing becomes a very important thing now when it comes down to that. Finding good sources, like I said, I was getting it from the LCSs, even with Sword and Shield, for the cost that they were plus shipping for them to give it to me with tax. So they were charging me tax, the price of the booster box, and then shipping to get it to them. So that was one of them times that I had some really good opportunities to capitalize on that. Since then, I've gotten a couple places now where I'm still continuing to get it at distribution prices. I've got access to like a so it's similar to. It's not quite the same, but Eli does it on Pokemon USA, where you can buy into his Patreon, gets you access to his distributor pricing. So basically, I joined a group with a couple LCSs in the area and joined into a group. So we create a little buyer group where we just all pretty much just buy in together to try and get volume discount. So
Smart.
yeah, we couldn't do it on our own. No distributor would take us. So there's one of us that has an LCS here locally, and then that person is our base of operations, and then we all kind of work together to just buy through this distributor. So we just all put in our money into, and purchase this in what we want. We make a list of all the products we want when the pre-release sheets come out or when the forms come out or what we're looking for. We look through it continuously, and we just continually just purchase through that. So that's been a really successful way of doing it, and it's been working out well so far for just keeping that price down. Once again, TikTok, great opportunity to get pricing at $285 a pack, and then I can go and turn that pack and sell it for $350 a pack. So you're still way under or right around market value or under Walmart pricing, and you're still able to have fun ripping and shipping, and the profit margins are there to make it where you can keep some behind. So that's always a nice thing as well.
Interesting.
So
That's a side of the hobby that I don't really dive into, but I do see a lot of rip and shippers, and I try to keep up with how they do it. It's just a different world. It's a different ball
it
game.
is. Like I always said, it's like I got a mullet. Up here it's business and then it's partying back. So I go to
There you go.
TikTok and it's just have fun. I just rip packs.
Yeah,
I keep taking my extra inventory and I kind of just keep rotating through, ripping through, having fun. You know, people are after the chase, like the EVs. People are for Twilight Masquerade are chasing that EV card like crazy. That's like number one chase right now when it comes down to the Illustrator rares. The secret rares are doing well too. There's a lot of stuff inside of there. A lot of fun cards. Temporal Forces, definitely cranking through Temporal Forces. I can't keep Temporal Forces. The
really.
SIRs, people are chasing those SIRs like crazy. I thought it would die down a little bit, but every time I get Temporal Forces back in, which I can't get at distributor any longer, the second I get any of it in, it's gone. I can sell it instantly.
Interesting.
So, Temporal Forces is one of them ones that it doesn't seem like it offers a lot, but apparently a lot of people love it, and it sells extremely fast. And I don't know, it's the first set in the Scarlet and Violet era I feel has the pull rate similar to Sword and Shield, and I wonder if that's maybe part of it.
Probably.
Because you're dealing with 855 to 1 pull rates on the top cards versus like the 300 to 150 to 300 for the earlier sets. So the pull rates on the SIRs are pretty difficult comparatively.
And I assume that that was when they fixed print quality then, didn't they? Because before that, print quality was a little bit.
I haven't
So
seen the print quality problems in Temporal Forces. They kind of fixed it in Paradox Rift as well. Paradox Rift, I don't remember seeing really bad print quality issues. Obsidian Flame was rough. I do know that. Pokemon 151 was fairly decent from what I remember. I mean, there was batches, it seemed like, with 151. I know Sword and Shield, or Scarlet and Violet base and Paldea Evolved were just junk. Like, that Magikarp is such a pile of crap trying to find one that's actually decent to grade. It's
wait
ridiculous.
for the reprint.
Wait for the reprint. That's what everybody's saying. Just wait for the reprint, because that thing is just junk. Trying to find one that's centered and actually not doesn't have that mark on the top corner to get a 10 on it is just extremely difficult.
I don't even want to ask about print lines, honestly. I don't want to even bother. For them
Yeah,
to be rating a modern card that harshly is pretty nuts.
yeah, exactly. So, well, we're to the part that you were like wanting to talk about, which is any tips and tricks that you could put forward to people to help you guys or help new people that are coming into this hobby. People that are looking at going into the flipping grade integrated cards or any parts of the hobby that you could suggest or to help people with.
I would say you have to start by figuring out what you want to do and how much disposable income you actually have. Because, like me, I didn't have any disposable income. That's why I decided to do flipping. I remember Walrus, think last year on one of your lives, asked why not do both, collect sealed and flip.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really have an answer back then. But the reason is because I cannot park any of this money into sealed and wait to see what happens. Because I know I'm going to need it in order to flip, keep churning and burning the inventory that I currently have. Because when you're involved in this kind of hobby, you're always going to need money for something, whether it's for inventory, whether it's for grading. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. So you have to learn how to budget yourself properly. And yeah, I think especially make a plan, figure out how much disposable income you have. If you have disposable income, then I recommend go for sealed. If you want to build capital, I would recommend flipping because there are PSA 10s out there and they're quite abundant, I would say, especially this last half a year. I've picked up, not to say that they're all PSA 10s, but I'm at probably about 70 cards that about maybe 40 of them I would say are safe 10s. Then the rest are between 10 and 9s, and then there's like a small like 10 stack of cards that are a 9, but I already realized that that's a profit in a PSA 9, so I'm just going through that. But let's see, what else for new people in the hobby? Don't open packs. What are you doing? Uh, Packs, it's not a good idea. I literally was watching Java Kuma, Bierski, Chef, the Pool Father yesterday, just going through packs. I'm like, there's nothing in there for you guys. But they just kept doing it out of a social convention
Yeah.
aspect. You're better off just buying the card.
You are.
And I can say this from my own personal experience that the first ever big huge hit I pulled was out of a Silver Tempest pack, and it was the Lugia V Alt Art. That's probably why I'm so obsessed with the card. But when I graded it, that was the very first card I graded. And after that, I actually purchased the card. That card graded an 8, fresh out of the pack, and it was just due to centering.
Yep.
That completely turned me off of ever buying a pack. I don't think I ever bought a pack again, except when I bought Crown Zenith for a few friends, where I decided to make a weigh the packs and make a God pack, God booster box out of it to rip with some friends over here in Honduras. That was like last year, I think. But other than that, it's not. You can make money ripping packs, but you're gonna lose a lot more.
Mhm.
So you want to be careful with that. Also, one big tip that I recommend is that I keep repeating this card Lugia V Alt Art. It's because I like that card so much that I know what it's gonna get, what it needs to be in order to get a PSA 10 by now. So I think sticking to one card that you like and just churning and burning the process as you learn about more cards, as you learn about centering, still get some Lugia V alt arts, get some card that you really, really like because you're teaching yourself how to grade these things, whether it's an 8, a 9, a 7, a 3. Each time it comes back, make sure you look at the card and see what flaws you find this time.
Yep.
Because PSA, like Andy says, uh, it's to the eye of the beholder in the sense of the grader, because every grader will give them whatever they believe the grade is. My last submission, I had a Raichu and a Lowland Raichu GX get a PSA 9, and then I got an Arceus Dialga Palkia GX, the statue
Yep.
alt art.
Okay. Yep.
That got a 10. And I'm like, no, no, this was supposed to be the other way around. And it's very clear that the centering on the Arceus Palkia Dialga is lesser than the Alolan Raichu GX. So, I mean, I'm considering cracking that PSA 9 Alolan Raichu and sending it back just because
Yeah.
I know how the game works. I know that the Dialga Palkia was in poorer condition. I'm sure that if I send it back, it should get a PSA 10. We'll find out,
Be
but
interesting.
yeah, for sure.
And that's the funny thing is that's like what you're talking about, and that's so even like I was laughing at is that I got that Lugia. So talking about the Lugia V, I was one of those victims of the PSA debacle, and I just never went through and did the claims on it. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I got two of them now. So I got the two up here, both of them
Nice.
sitting there, and the one centering was perfect. That's where I was doing an opening. I opened actually did the submission came in and I did the opening on that one because I was really excited about the Lugia V. It was just come out and I had pulled two of them like two in a row on like short videos that I was doing, which was really very weird. And they were out of like two 6-pack bundles that I did right in a row and hit them both. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna send this in. One was centering was a little bit off, but at the time, pulling them right away, you get really good value in that nines. Even at a 9, I figured it would be okay. Potentially a 10, and the other one, I'm like, God, this thing should get a 10 all day long. Its centering was like dead on, perfect. Mark, no marks on it, nothing. Sent it in. The one came back a 9, and I looked at it. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the one that's a little bit off center. Okay, I'm okay with that. I kind of figured that would be a 9. Good, good, good. I was hoping for the 10, but it didn't quite pass it. But I could still be profitable at the 9 on that Lugia V at the time. It was still like $185 at that time for the 8. And I'm like, that's all right. That's all right. I'm going to make decent money even over the raw value of that card. So then I went through and, had the 10, and what I thought would have been a 10 then. And I get it, and it's got an 8. I'm like, whoa, why is the centering dead on this card? There's no flaws. And I turn it over and you can see on the edge where there's a mark. So that was where PSA found out later that from actually Java Akuma did this video talking about how he had sent in all these submissions. All these people started coming out with videos of sending their submissions to PSA right at that time frame where they were getting marks on the card and then they were devaluing the grade.
Oh, of
So
course.
that's was one of them that got hit. It's got the
Oh,
exact same mark up on that upper corner, I'm trying to remember if you look at it, it's left or right. You know, it's on the upper one corner there, on the edge. And a lot of us got that same issue came through. And it's like,
Oh, sorry.
I know
That's your control.
it's out of my control. It's like, well, I guess it's a binder. So I broke it open and I threw it in my binder. I'm like, yep, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and fight it. You know, it's dinged. It's really not. I can't sell it as near mint now. You know, it's really not much value to keep it in the 8 grade. I said it's actually cheaper than the raw, not, you know, lightly played or. So it just kind of frustrated me. I threw it in the binder. I'm like, whatever, good enough. Call it a day. But that's the stuff that could happen. Once again, if you're on a tight budget, like you're saying, and you don't have much expendable money, and you're potentially sending these cards out, once again, the graders can make or break you when it comes down to these particular items. And these are situations that are always potentially there that you need to consider that S happens. Let's be 100% honest. You know, shit happens in the process, and you need to be able to adjust and be able to have that expendable money to understand that you may lose out sometimes because of stupid things that you're just 100% out of your control. Even like you're saying, better conditions, better centered card comes back with a worse grade than a card that's better centered and better condition or worse condition. So, you know, it's a crapshoot. No matter what you do, and you're sending things through mail, it's no longer in your possession. It goes through a process. There's always a chance that things can go wrong and damage and things can occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough to tell somebody not to get discouraged when that happens
Yeah.
because I mean it's absolutely ridiculous, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Nope.
You gotta take the loss. The only good thing that came out of this is that Lugia is pumped to $200 now. So I mean, push comes to shove, you can sell it for more profit.
I could, and that's what I always figured is on it. I enjoy some of the alternate art, so I try and keep, you know, some of them back regardless because I'm still trying to build a binder of at least one of all the alternate arts. And I said, you know, I know something. There's nothing that says that it needs to be clean for me to have it. I mean, it's just a binder collection card. So I figured, well, that'll just be my binder. The other one in there, I was going to send on a submission because that one, once again, YuGiOh, when I got that one, YuGiOh was like down to, what, 109, 110 or something like that. And I'm just like, this card's going to have value. There's no point. I'm not selling it for 110 because there's definitely going to be value in this card in the near future. I could see this card doubling in the next year anyways, so there's no way I'm selling it for 110. So I figured I'd let that one ride for a while. And you know, a lot of them cards, I picked them up when they were going down in price. I was telling people, you know, like the Charizard V, a perfect example, almost down to $100. It's like, I'm buying this thing. It tried dropping under 125 and I started buying. I'm like, if this alternate art V goes under $100, I'm going to be really amazed. But there's no way it's going to sit that low for that long. It's going to go back up. It's just a matter of, you know, how long. Are we talking a month or are we talking 6 months? Something's going to happen where this is going to go back up. And that was the point where I was, you know, even on the channel, we were talking about it. It's like everybody's on tag teams right now. When tag teams get too expensive, people are going to shift. Not everybody's going to continue to keep this tag team trend going where these cards are tripling, quadrupling, you know, 10 timesing over the last couple months. And
Yeah,
basically,
it's not.
yeah, and basically what I always say you got to do is you need to be able to read the market a little bit and go, where are they going to go next? What are they going to want to go to next? And if you can get ahead of it a little bit, you can get it in the position where you can get some for really cheap prices and then let the market run into you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Like you do with XY.
like you're doing with XI, we're doing a lot of us. I think we're all on the same page with XY too. We're getting
Definitely.
ahead of it, thinking that all the signs are showing that there might be a shift back to XY, and there's going to be an opportunity. And I know you and I aren't the only ones out there that are doing that. I'm hearing that from
Alex is pumping it up too.
yeah, and it's pumping it up as well because more of us are shifting that way. And some of us are doing it quietly, where we're just slowly buying them on the side like that. I mean, a claim sale had a bunch of EXs, so I just started buying them. I got the Mega Charizard EX out of one of them for 25
Nice.
bucks. I mean, claim sale was 25 bucks for a Mega Charizard EX. Okay, that'll come
Yeah,
home with me.
it's not going to be $20 when next year hits.
No, and that's just it. So those are all the things that you have to be able to do. Even like when I was talking about Tag Team, I was telling people buy Tag Team at $780, $800 a booster box. And I remember that video in April of 2022 2, I was saying that. And people went, oh, Sun and Moon's junk. Nobody's buying Sun and Moon. The value of tag teams aren't going to go up. They're subpar compared to, Sword and Shield. And you hear all these things. And I was laughing at that time. I'm just like, I'm buying tag team or team up. I'm buying team up all day long. It's $800 a booster box. I bought 4 of them. I'm like, I know it's expensive, and people are like, "That's way too expensive. Nobody's gonna want that box." I'm like, $800. That came down in price. It was at 1,000. It went down to 800. I'm like, perfect time, jump in. Bought a bunch of tag teams at that point. Was just planning on it because I'm like, people are gonna shift back to this. There's no way that they're gonna let this underprinted set of team up not go up in value. It just doesn't make sense. And then, what, a year and a half later, team up was $2,000 a booster box. And then all of the team up products have all gone up. All the team up cards have gone up by at least double, if not triple, quadruple, or better. So, I mean, the minimum I did is double up in a year and a half, while other cards were, 10x, depending on which ones you got, like the Mimikyu and Gengar and all that, did extremely well. So, positioning is a lot of it. And that's going to be something that's really a difficult thing to learn. And it takes time, and you have to be able to, number one, read markets, and you have to, number two, be able to read people and anticipate people's movements and what they think.
True. And you have to trust yourself.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to FOMO. I mean, I'm FOMO, so I know all this stuff. I've made all the mistakes just to get to where I am so that I don't really make these mistakes anymore. And now I've gotten so used to it where I can develop my own opinion, cancel out all the noise, cancel out all the fog. I am part of Discord groups, but I do not interact in the chats or anything like that because they're echo chambers. I just use them to advertise my eBay listings.
Yeah.
That's all, pretty much. Because you can get a lot of, that's another interesting tip. If you sell stuff on eBay, you should advertise them on certain Discords because they get a lot of traction that way. Especially I've used Ava's Binder, Pokevault, Rattle, for example. I think there are a few other ones, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. If you want traction, or at least people to see your stuff versus other people's, your competition, just post them there specifically. Yeah. It really does work, and it's a huge thing that I've heard nobody talk about.
Ava's Binders one has always been really successful for me.
Yeah, and
I don't know why. That hers, I don't know. It's like she has a lot of collectors in her particular one that are just strictly looking for graded slabs.
Yeah. And that's the point. Not everyone's looking for graded slabs, so you have to kind of do your due diligence and figure out which Discords are more inclined. And you'll know because you can see the amount of views you get on your listings. You can see the amount of watchers you get on your listings.
Yep.
Numbers get pumped when you post those things on these Discords. It's a wonderful thing.
And I always do them one at a time when I've done Discords, so just a hint for anybody out there that's considering advertising on these. Do one at a time. So list on one and wait a day. That way you can see what kind of traffic you're getting and if it's worth doing it. Because sometimes you'll list on a Discord and you get 3-4 more views than what we were on track for. Well, why take the time of posting on there if it's not going to get you any value? Then you can go to, like you said, go to Pokevault, put it on there. Okay, well, now I got 10,000 views on this through Pokevault. And then I go down and, okay, I waited 24 hours, I got 10,000 views. Now I go to Ava's Binder, I put it in. Okay, well, now I got another 15,000 views on this. So you can continually see each day that you do it, you can keep track and see what is there value in the time that you're putting into that.
Yeah. And also I'd suggest people, the Discord creators, they should add the eBay page so that people can list their listings, to each his own. Yeah. But it's just more publicity. It helps get the word of mouth out there. It's a win-win for everybody.
It is, absolutely. So Yeah. Other than that, the only other thing that I'd like to ask, if you have anything, is going to be, what are some downfalls, or what are some things that you have found have been a downfall to you that may have almost pushed you to the edge of stopping? Have you gotten into anything like that, or has it been pretty smooth sailing in that point that you've just been set on it and it didn't matter what happened, you're just going to keep moving through?
It was never in the realm of the possibilities that I was going to stop until I figured it out. I think it's just mentalized it that I guess I treated it like another Pokemon game or another anime where I either want to watch all the episodes or I want to finish the game. So in this sense, it's like every single day I'm learning something new, and this game is never ending. I want to learn every aspect of it. Even if I get burned, I'll learn from my mistakes. Just like Chef, when you interviewed him, you don't make the same mistake twice. And
Yep.
if you're a serious person, whether it's just professionalism, work ethic, if you're a disciplined person, if you have the motivation and the drive, you will learn mainly from the mistakes. And that's the most important thing because you don't want to get into the hobby and start doubling your money from the get-go. You're going to build a huge ego that you don't want because the next time you get burned, it's going to be so bad you're not going to know how to recover from it.
Yeah.
And that will seriously unmotivate you and get you out of the hobby. All the mistakes I made were for a reason, and that's why now I don't make those mistakes anymore. I've learned to listen to my own thought process, and it's all very logical now. And it's strange because one day you wake up and you realize, wow, everything just kind of clicks and makes sense, and there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn. It's just it gets easier the more you give, the more you get back. So unfortunately, I haven't had anything too detrimental to the point where it made me want to quit. Hopefully it doesn't happen. I don't think it will. Hopefully, you never know. Um, but in the meantime, I'm having fun, and really, I think that when I started this whole venture, it was probably for money because I think at the beginning I was thinking, oh, Pokemon, I heard that you can make money through this. I want to get involved. I want to get engaged. And you know what happened? I ended up meeting so many amazing people, just the entirety that is the Pokemon community on YouTube. And it really puts things into perspective, just how wonderful and how nice and friendly people are. It's hard to get that even from your own neighborhood community.
Hmm.
So just being around all you wonderful people, getting the great advice, getting meeting so many different people from different areas, different fields, different expertise, that's definitely motivated me. And it's a part of why I'm finishing my nursing degree. So cheers to all of you, honestly. Thank you very much.
And that's just it. I always loved asking that question because, actually the first person I actually came to the point where they actually said on here that they were close was Java. I was actually
Hmm.
surprised when he said that. I didn't think that, you know, I guess it's hard to see someone with like Java's experience and kind of where he's at for a stature that he's actually was to that point at one point. But it's interesting. It is always interesting to hear those things. So, excuse me, it's getting a little bit of tickle in my throat. But you know, like you said, if you position yourself well, and if you're smart, and like Chef said, you don't make the same mistake twice. We all make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's made mistakes. Came back, and I started opening packs. It was, now that you look back on it, it's dumb. You shouldn't do that, and you know that if you're into the investing or if you're into the resale side of things, that opening packs is probably the worst thing you can do. But you do it. You don't have that experience. You don't have that knowledge at that point in time, and then when you get that knowledge, You shouldn't go back and do that. And you realize that. I did this once and now I screwed up. It didn't work. So I'm not going to do that again. I understand it. I'm not going to buy from, anymore from Buyee anymore, because every time I do, I get junk. I don't get what they advertise, and there's no way I can do anything about it. And they know that too. So they know that they're safe if they send it to America, because you're never going to be able to go back after these things. That was one thing that Akuma and I both had talked about when we were on here, is that we both bought from Buyee at some point in time. I think a lot of people are looking in that Japanese market or in those other, looking for those specialty items will do that. But I've gotten to the point where even myself, I will buy it from a United States seller before I will buy it from Buyee, just because I know at least the American seller, if I buy it through eBay or something like that, I'll pay a little bit extra, but at least I got the security knowing that that it's as described, or I can make a claim. And you can't necessarily do that. You can't do that on Buyee Japan. I mean, eBay Japan. It don't work.
That's what holds me back, to be honest,
Yeah.
because you really have to know what you're doing. And I respect Java and Ernie for getting the ins and outs of Bai, but it's just a different beast, and I don't know if I want to risk my money on that.
I did it twice. I tried. I bought them both at the same time, but I tried two different places, and I would not suggest it in any way, shape, or form. That's just been my experience. I would rather just pay the money in the U.S. market and be done with it. For example, these things right behind me too. You could buy these on Buyee Japan. These are a cool little trinket thing that they did for, this is Chinese, simplified Chinese.
Cute.
And you could get these off of, you could go through Buyee and you can get them through there. They're a little bit cheaper, but these ones I know came sealed. They still got all the plastic, because I've bought sealed stuff from Buyee, and they'll be cut open. They'll be, that kind of stuff all occurs on those particular items, especially on Buyee. And there's nothing you can do. If it's open, how do you go and do anything about that? Well, if I buy this from an American seller, I can at least have the leverage to go to eBay, take a picture of it when I take it out of the box, and say, not as described. I mean, it's you can go through those processes that you can't do. And if it's a mistake, you don't make a mistake if you learn from it. Everybody makes mistakes, but realistically, they're learning steps. You don't learn if you're just doing the same thing and everything's successful. You're not learning anything. You're
just blowing smoke up your own ass.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're doing. If you think that everything you've done has been perfect and that there was nothing that you could learn from those things because you already knew it, you're either not trying hard and you're not doing anything that has any risk to it, or number two, like you said, you're blowing smoke up your ass and you're just continually you're just think you're the best at everything, when realistically you're missing the bigger picture, or you're missing what you're actually getting wrong.
Yeah. Ego is fine in this hobby, just don't, it's only to a certain degree. If you think that you know better, you will be put in your place.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this hobby, that it doesn't care much for ego, and the community doesn't care much for ego either. It is what it is.
Yep. But in general, like you said, this hobby is, to my experience, even so far, has been absolutely awesome. I mean, everybody I meet, very good individuals. There's always people, but it doesn't seem like any of the circles I run into have these people in them. You always hear people with horror stories and everything else, but in general, the hobby has been very, very clean and helpful, and very, very open to new people, open to ideas. And like I've said before, I think everybody in this hobby, everybody I know, everybody I talk to, if you ask them something, they are more than willing to help you. If you are looking for something, or if you are stuck on something, or if you want to know more information, myself, anybody that I know will easily jump in and say, yeah, try this, or I'm looking for this and I can't find it. Well, go call so-and-so, Here, I got, Dan's number, or I got Dan's message in my phone. Here, let me message Dan. He'll know where to go. Or I got Rusty's Instagram. Let me just message Rusty real quick. I mean, he'll tell me who might have that particular thing. So you get these people in hobby, and if I send someone to Rusty and they go to them or go to Dan, they'll help. They'll all jump in and go, yeah, no, absolutely. I can help you with that. That's not a problem. I got this, or this person has this, and It's always funny. It's just a whole community of people with like-minded interests, and most of us are very, very like-minded enough to where we enjoy it.
100%.
So, well, that's all I got. Do you have any questions or things you'd like to add in, or did you see anything? I don't know. Do you have the chat open at all, or?
I don't. All I have is
Okay,
Zoom.
okay. I didn't know if you did or not because I there was a couple questions, but a lot of them we did cover throughout the video. I did throw in a couple of them that I did see that were relevant to where we were going on this stuff. And what we were discussing at the time, like the sourcing, was one of the questions that came through. Other than that, like I said, that was pretty much all the things I saw in the chat. If anybody else has anything quick, we're more than willing to take any quick questions here. But otherwise, like I said, greatly appreciated to have you on here, IFOMO. It's glad to have you in for the interview and get to know you a little bit better for who you are in the hobby. And, with everybody, like I said, you're here in every live stream, it seems like. So, seems like
I
just,
try to be.
well, it's just that I turn them on and it's like you're actively like typing in the streams all the time and it just involved and it's like I show up and say hey everybody and then it's like I put the like PKs, I'll put it up on the screen and I'm working on something else while I'm listening to them and it's like all I do is look up and I see you just constantly discussing things with people, so it's really awesome.
I'm very chatty through text. Very chatty. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
And I'm a little bit more shy, I guess. I'm an introvert, but I've forced myself I used to be a server for about 10 years, a waiter.
yeah,
So I've forced myself to be an extrovert, but I moonlight as an introvert. So just out of routine, I like engaging with people. I like chatting with people. It's just that when, there's a certain time where I just go back into an introvert.
yeah.
But I guess the Pokemon community brought it out of me. I don't know.
We can do that to people.
Yeah, you guys do that for sure. And also, I mean, it's just a really fun time talking to everybody, and there's always something to learn. That's just, I just love being a part of it and just chatting with everybody. It's gotten to the point where I feel like we know each other better than most of our
Friends.
coworkers, students, people I go to school with, stuff like that. It's crazy. And we share all this knowledge,
Yeah,
what we do, even our habits. Like we know each other at this point via text.
yeah. I mean, just like you said, with you and I, we're just discussing what we're buying, and you ask if we've seen these, and we're constantly just kind of talking about these things, and it's funny that you always have these side conversations, and we're always talking to different people and different Discord groups and Instagram messages and text messages and everything else. And it's just funny that, even after I've been on YouTube now for, I was playing, I was buying investments, but I was doing it just all on my own. And after 2020, I started the YouTube channel with Jacob and all that. And it's just absolutely insane the amount of people that have opened up, had discussions with, talked to, you learn, you meet, you do things with them and you can ask questions and even to choose your path and being on YouTube. Just amazing how much this opens up and how many like-minded people there are out there that are just as passionate as you are about it. And even after, 2021 I started, March of 2021 I started this channel, and after still this many years, I still enjoy every one of these conversations, every one of these videos I have, every one of these chats that I have with people is just absolutely amazing and still fun to me, and I never ever regret them. There's never been a chat that I said I absolutely hate talking about this. Like, I never get to the point where I hate talking about Pokemon. It has not happened yet. So it's absolutely amazing that it still continues to just be fun and it's enjoyable and it's exciting.
Definitely. And we are our community, you know. We are very nice people, so we attract very nice people. Those who, let's say, aren't so nice or rude or contradictory or whatever, tend to go to their own groups,
Yep.
stuff like that. I like the setup we have. Everyone's so positive, and the negative can be left in a Discord social group, but you can pick and choose what you listen to.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to be stuck listening to an echo chamber unless you're Alex. No. Um, yeah, careful with those social media outlets. Those can be tricky sometimes. You can end up going down a rabbit hole and you get stuck. Avoid rabbit holes,
Yeah,
the the bad ones at least.
yeah. Try to use your own mind a little bit. That would be my biggest suggestion. Is if something doesn't feel right, even if it's being said by multiple people, avoid it. You're better off to just avoid things and let them play out to see how well that they do or if there's an opportunity at them, rather than getting stuck someplace for a long period of time because you listen to a group of people saying something. You can very quickly in this hobby get a pretty good sense of bearing of where you want to be and what you want to do and how it works. So use your gut and your own instincts more, probably more than what you hear from other people. Even myself, what works for me and what I'm doing right now may work for me and it might work for 10 people, but it may not work for you. It may not work for everybody in this hobby and for where you're at and what your positioning is. Or when you hear the information, sometimes the things change so fast in this hobby that, people will sit there and say, well, that's not this information is right. I got that in a video that I did in 2021. And it's like, they're like, well, none of this information's right. It's all this. It's like, well, that was 2021. A lot of things have changed in the Pokemon market since, October of 2021. I mean, it's nowhere near the same space, and it's always perceived when you're in it. And that's the bigger part.
Absolutely. And it's always changing. It's constantly changing. So you kind of have to be on top of the ball while still kind of hinting as to what's going to happen next. Because there are no guarantees.
Yeah, exactly. So there was one question that came up from Green Icon Dude.
Ah. Hmm.
Real quick, real quick, IFOMO. What do you do in nursing?
What
Do
do I do in nursing?
Do you have a specific area in nursing that you're working on, or just general nursing?
I haven't gotten to that point yet. Uh, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I'm just trying to take one step at a time, finish my nursing degree, and then figure out what I want to do after that because right now it's all about money, unfortunately. But you know what? 5 years from now, I'm going to have a different perspective. Especially when I finish my degree, I'm going to try my best to figure out what I want to do in that degree. But I've thought about traveling nurse. I thought probably ultimately what I'm going to end up is getting my RN
Okay.
so I can be in the operating room, stuff like that, because they get the most amount of money or they get paid very well. Uh, it's kind of a materialistic goal, but still helping people at the same time. I just haven't figured that out yet. It's a great question.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know how. Well, I know there's different categories in nurse because my mom is an RN, so she's a registered nurse since forever. My sister's a doctor. Now my other
Hmm.
sister is a physical. Well, she's a orthopedic therapist, so she's a little bit higher than a physical therapist, but she's basically all on bone and bone function. So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So it's a little bit interesting. So I got quite a few people in my family that are in the medical field. So really interesting. In the different directions that you could definitely go. There's a ton to go in the medical field. I mean, there is no shortage on directions that you could choose to do.
Exactly. And that's what I like about it. You know what the biggest issue, the biggest issue right now here in Honduras is? There is oversaturation of doctors.
Really?
So they're all competing against each other, undercutting each other, just like you would see in the Pokemon market for that matter. It is, I can't believe it. And I see friends of mine who have their doctor's degrees and they're all struggling.
Yeah.
So it's gotten to the point where obviously population growth here in Central America is very, very quickly expanding. So they're going to have to come to an interesting decision whether to stay here and eventually get there through their reputation. And then they can charge premiums because it's like, oh, it's that doctor, he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
or they go to a different country where there's not a saturation for doctors, which I thought was insane
Yeah, it's
until
crazy.
they firsthand just told me when I got here.
While here in the United States, there's a shortage of doctors. They can't find doctors to save their lives for some of the fields that they need to, that they're looking for filling.
And I would consider getting into some of those fields of that are not saturated.
Yeah.
100%. It's just frame of mind at the time. When I graduate, I feel like I'll have a different frame of mind. Right now, it's just very money oriented because money is so literal to me and not abstract
Yeah.
because I don't have it.
So, no, that's just it. So, there's plenty of time. I mean, if you're just starting your nursing, there's plenty of time to decide where to go, and what you actually want to do. So,
Yeah. I just know that that is ultimately the end goal when it comes to school because I'm 30. I need to graduate.
you need to get something done here, right?
Yeah, serving it paid the bills for when it paid the bills and then COVID hit and I haven't gotten a serving job ever since. And I love it. It's the same thing as the Pokemon community. You have your community of chefs, bussers, servers, bartenders, et cetera, and you all work together for a common goal.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. It's just that with that comes, let's say, other things like all of them wanting to go out and drink that very same day. Stuff like that. That's stuff that I'm not really interested in whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's why you see me on YouTube because I don't, besides nursing, I don't really have much else going on for me. I try to keep a well-balanced diet, exercise, but that's all stuff that I've learned through Pokemon, through a discipline of like running this as if it were a business.
Yeah. That's a really good mentality to keep. Is that, if you run it like a business, you can always reward yourself out of the business by
Hmm.
keeping cards. There's nothing that says you can't reward yourself, but as long as you're making income and continuing to move in the green direction of your business, you're good to go. Especially if
Yeah.
it's expendable money. I mean, everything that you just make on top of it in the right direction is just more money in your pocket and futuristically. So, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a really good way to talk about it and a really good way to look at it when it comes down to that. So, well, thank you so much, IFOMO, for joining me this evening. Greatly
Thank you.
appreciated for joining in to Choose Your Path and giving us a little bit of a different view, especially being from a different country, which I think is really interesting. Even though you're from the United, you've been in the United States, you're from the United States, but just the fact that you are broadcasting from Honduras is a really cool a really cool little change. So thank you so much for that too. Greatly appreciate it taking the time while you're down there.
And I'm extremely humbled to be on your channel. It's been a long time since I wanted to like do lives. I don't do lives very often because I get crazy anxiety before I do lives, so it just isn't really a thing that I not look forward to. It's just that the anxiety supersedes my excitement. So it's tough for me sometimes to do lives, but I promise I'll try my best to do more lives
Awesome.
throughout these especially this next semester. We'll see how it works out with nursing.
Well, sounds good. Hopefully we didn't have too much anxiety here. Hopefully I made it a smooth live for you,
Very,
which is
very smart.
great. I try to make this as smooth as possible. I like the good conversation where we just kind of branch off, have a good discussion, sometimes go on little side tangents that the chat has, and it really seems to be working out well. I like the live version versus the pre-recorded. I'm sure some people like the pre-recorded version because then you can remove mistakes, but on the other hand, you get the live interaction from the chat where we can really kind of just, expand a little bit for what the people or what individuals are actually looking for when they're starting out. And it's a huge advantage as well. So, like I said, hopefully you didn't get huge anxiety coming onto the channel. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And
No, you're a wonderful host, and it's a different experience. I don't like pre-recorded videos either. I like doing the lives because you really get to vibe out the person
yeah,
that's either being interviewed or the person giving the interview themselves. So
Yeah.
I've always learned the most out of interviews and interacting with people. And that's also why I enjoy Pokemon Wonders channel, for example,
Hmm.
because I thought, man, all these YouTubers sound lovely, but what are they like actually? And then you get to see them live, and it's like, okay, I see you.
Yeah. Now I see who you are. I mean, you've been doing all these videos where you're keeping things out and closing things off, but now being live, that's not necessarily available. And personally, I keep questioning whether or not I should just stop doing pre-recorded videos or do minimum and just start doing more lives, because I feel it'd be a lot more, even if it was not with a guest, but even me just discussing things with the live. I think that it partially goes back and forth with me to doing the longer content, but having that instead. So I go back and forth on it because I do like the pre-recorded videos. I like the information that I can put into a pre-recorded video, but on the other hand, I don't get that user interface like I do with the live situation. You know, and having the actual questions that people want to know. And I think sometimes that's more important as well. Is I'm guessing what people want and what people
Hmm.
are looking for when I'm doing a video. But if I am live, you can tell me what you're looking for, and I can break it down or give you an analysis on why, I feel this way about a particular thing. And maybe it's just another weapon or another part of your arsenal to make the decision. Me and some other people that you ask on lives could give you their opinions to be able to build on. So,
Yeah, I feel like with pre-recorded videos, there must be a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but there's editing involved, and all of that is time consuming.
it is.
Lives, you just go live and you do your thing.
You're done. I don't have to
Yeah,
sit there and
I
try
love
and
that.
clip things and bring in edited screens and all that other stuff. And I mean, they have their purpose. And I really do think that I would still do some, but I really do think that maybe I'm getting more to the point where I would just enjoy doing lives, I think, as much as I would pre recording videos. Maybe I should just spin around my chair and yell, folks. That seems to be the way to go.
You gotta say it's gonna go to the moon.
Yeah, it's going to go to the moon, folks.
Yeah, folks.
Folks!
Also, one last thing. Did you want to talk about the time cost, the time
Yeah,
versus cost value?
we could do that real quick. Yeah. If you want to talk about how much time you put in versus the cost value per hour, it's kind of a question I've been kind of getting away from, but it's definitely a good one to look at for quite a few, or users out there.
See, the way I see it is that I've been very, very intensely absorbing information for the past 2 years on YouTube. I mean, like a sponge, whether it's from lives or videos or other uh, content creators. But it used to be a huge waste of time. Like I would completely ignore that question, thinking, well, obviously, I don't want to talk because I spend way too much hours doing what I do.
Hmm.
But as a result, it set me up for success where I can, for example, come to Central America, spend 2 months here, and still make moves and make plans and not even give too much time out of my day to make, like, I've sourced for 4 hours ever since I've been here, and I've been here for a month. I've been sourcing for 4 hours. I bought about 5 cards, 6 cards. Um, and that's all the time it really takes at this point. I have my inventory in my binder. I have a whole bunch of PSA 10s that nobody wants here. But because I understand the market, because I put in so much time into videos, I really don't have to do much anymore. Like, for example, waiting for my plug to send me pictures of cards. I just go through the cards, pick the ones that I want. Really doesn't take that long.
Hmm.
Sourcing on eBay, sure, that can be very time consuming, but that's probably the most time consuming thing you're going to do, period. Besides selling, if you're not used to selling. Uh, Other than that, really, it's not, I can't put a price on the time anymore because I'm really not taking too much time out of my day. It's not even, it doesn't even feel worth evaluating my time at this point. that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
And that's me taking my foot off the gas because I just don't, I'm just doing everything very calmly here. I'm also testing the waters here to see what will sell, what people are interested. Being a facilitator, because if people will expect me to sell them cards 20% under MSRP, that's a great deal when you consider the tax advantages to all of it, selling in a foreign country,
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Well,
There's it's it really works to my benefit if I can get inventory, separate the PSA 9s and 10s from all the 8s and below, and sell them to people here that would actually appreciate them 20% under MSRP.
and you still
So,
win because you're moving cards that would have sit in your inventory in the United States for years potentially.
and yeah, that's why I have a hard time with bulk because I have nothing against people who sell bulk. I just was never good at it or didn't understand the process. I understand it now, but it's just I try to be as churn and burn as possible. Just
Yep.
burn, just get through all the inventory. And if it doesn't sell, I throw it in auction, even if it's for the bottom dollar, because that's just eating into profits. And it's best to get rid of the slab for opportunity costs. In my opinion, I prioritize opportunity costs much more than holding it.
It,
For no particular reason. I just feel like the money could be utilized better. But also, that being said, people here are trading me pretty minty cards for um, my cards, but I always give them a good deal. If it's like a lightly played card, I'm going to go low list, 20% under the lowest listed for the
yeah.
LP and do it that way. And they're giving me their mint cards that could potentially PSA 10 that they have no care for because they don't believe in the PSA 10 premium anyway.
Yeah. And
So,
that's a huge advantage when you're down there too, because then you can be able to pick up those raw singles right from people and
exactly.
skip. Like I said, they're getting a deal too, because even if you figure you're 20% under, if they were selling them on a site, they're gonna have a percentage loss as well, just like all of us. So that's just it. I mean, that's a big factor when it comes down to being successful, and it is huge. And like you said, it is really hard to quantify when you're spreading your time all over the place and just doing it here and there versus, someone like Jake from Pokenomics or, Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles that have set business hours and they work so many hours. Then you're quantifying it based on their throughput. And realistically, that's what I always said is the whole hardest part about this is that if I were to sit there and try and figure all my time that I've put into Pokemon, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, all the other stuff, I am nowhere near paying what I could make doing something else. But the other part of it is too, as I always say, is that I enjoy this a lot more than a lot of other things that I could do to make money. So
True.
the enjoyment factor is a lot higher, and I do enjoy this hobby, and then that's a bigger factor to me. Is it's something that I enjoy. If I wanted another job, yeah, I could go make more money doing something else for another job, but it isn't as enjoyable as this.
Yep. 100%. I get that all the time, especially from the stock market people.
Yep.
Those people in the Pokemon community, they're like, the stock market, it's just so boring. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's why I'm not in the stock market.
I have my normal retirement stocks. That's pretty much as far as I go into it, just because, same thing. It's like you put your money and you wait. Okay, cool. I do my normal 401k. I put in my retirement, my max retirement every year. That's part of my business benefits. But because I'm a business owner, I just once a year, me and my brother dump in our full amounts into our business or for our business that we can invest into a 401k or retirement plan for the year, and we're done. So now I invest in Pokemon. Why? Because it's fun.
It's
I
fun.
enjoy it. It's something I have. I can, if I get bored with looking at this card for a while, I can go sell it and go buy a different one. And then there's always that availability to continue just roll and do what I want. And that's the fun thing about it.
Yeah, and for me, if I wasn't doing Pokemon, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd probably be on the phone on the emulator playing the Pokemon game or playing like some sort of Dragon Ball. microtransaction, ad-based consumer BS phone game. And that's this is so much better compared to what you could actually be doing. There's so many ways to waste your time and at least make some money out of it.
Exactly.
If you consider it a waste of time, I
Yeah.
don't consider it
I
a
don't.
waste.
I think it's just it's fun. It's excitement. It's fun. It's nice to do that. So
It's time consuming,
yes,
yes, 100%. But if this is something that you enjoy, this is a perfectly acceptable way of making income.
it is absolutely.
And that's the
So,
end of it.
all right. Well, like I said, thank you so much for joining tonight and giving us your insight and your knowledge. Once again,
Absolutely.
it's cool that you're in Honduras and becoming a nurse. Another really cool factor about you, and to see you in person was really even more exciting for me because, like I said, I did not know that you had done a live yet, but still really awesome to have you on doing the interview and telling people where you are, what you know, what your goals are, what you're doing currently, and kind of sharing your knowledge on how other people can be successful in the Pokemon TCG when it comes down to either business or investing into yourself.
100%, because ultimately we want more people in the hobby.
Yes.
That's what this is all about. We want more people in the hobby. We want people to enjoy and not get burned by the process, because that's not what this is about. This is about showing, it is about building the community by building the market pool. Just everything is a win-win in that sense. I
Yes.
just see a lot more growth by bringing in new people and having diverse opinions, and every once in a while debating it out. This is good. This is all very good for the hobby.
Absolutely. It's fantastic to have the debates and the discussions. I mean, there are good discussions to be had, and there are very, very good debates and sides to everything, and making the best decisions and putting together the puzzle a lot of times is half the battle, and it makes it a lot more exciting and fun in general to do so.
Hmm.
So, well, seeing that we don't have any more questions from the chat, looks like we got all of them after we asked your question about which part of nursing you were going into. Like I said, greatly appreciated. If you have any last things you'd like to say to the audience before we take off,
Yeah, just get your merch.
thank you so much,
Merch
IFOMO.
straight out of Honduras.
Did they send that to Honduras?
No, they sent it to El Paso. I brought it over. I thought it would be
Okay.
cool for live.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
supporting that as well. Greatly appreciated. Yes, the merch is here. There's a link in the description for that as well. So thank you so much for pushing that and helping out as well. Other,
Absolutely.
and of course, being the mod on my lives, thank you so much for doing that as well and assisting the best that you can as well. So thank you so much for that.
That's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much for everybody that's joined in once again for another Choose Your Path episode. I currently don't have another person, but we will be going live next Tuesday for sure. Baseball's done, so I have the availability to jump on live again like I should be. So everything should be straightening out on schedule. I should be back Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central Time for sure for a live here. And then I will see if I can get another person. I'm still working on Mason at Cardinal Gaming. So, Mason, if you do see this, set up a time with me. Come on, man. I want to do this. I want to have a discussion with you. So, I like to get Mason on here, not as a choose your path, but just as a discussion. I like going over him with the industry because he's got the boots on the ground mentality of being in the middle of it. Kind of his thoughts too on what's going on with TCG Player because there's been a lot of shifts now that eBay's purchased that on the way that they're doing things. So there's a lot of things happening that I would really like to get Mason's input on because he is really good at breaking it down and giving us that feel. So overall, thank you iFOMO once again for joining us. Greatly appreciated for joining us this evening and spending your time with us. Hopefully you have a good day at school or classes if you have them tomorrow. Hopefully it isn't too late for you.
Not yet.
All
No.
right. And other than that, thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully we will see you next time here on Northwoods TCG.